here's another fun fact for you. Connor did some digging. All you crazy MKFers, and here's your stat of the day. What's going on, folks, and welcome into Monkey Knife Fights Thursday night football preview show. I'm Connor Rowntree. That's Jim Coventry. And we've got another fun one. Apparently, this game might be played in a monsoon, Jim. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I think we'll get rain, and as to how much, right, that could change by the minute. But right now, NFLweather.com is talking about 68 to 70% chance for rain all 4 quarters. It should be a wet field because the rain is supposed to happen during the day. But I think this is going to play in as we talk about this game with the games we were expecting anyway. So I think this is going to be a fun one to break down, Connor.
Yeah, not much has really changed from the weather forecast to what I'm seeing with Atlanta, right? If we really want to get into this matchup, it may not be the cream of the crop, but hey, it's Thursday night football. What else are you going to do? It's not a Netflix night. It's a football night, all right? Play Monkey Knife Fight, have a little fun. So what we got to look at going into this one is Joe Mixon just basically assaulted this defense on the ground, this Panthers defense. And you got Cordell Patterson back. And now you have a rushing quarterback in Mariota. I mean, if it's going to be raining, is there any chance that there's going to be any stopping this rush attack from the Falcons?
You know, what's beautiful about the Falcons rushing attack is, they're coming at you, but they do it in a non-traditional way. And that's why they're successful. They'll put 3 tight ends on the field. They'll put 2 tight ends and 2 running backs on the field, but they will create a numbers problem for the defense. So it doesn't matter if they're playing a good run defense. And you mentioned very astutely that Joe Mixon crushed them last week. But the Panthers, per Pro Football Focus, are still a top 10 run defense. It's just Mixon caught them off guard. He had that perfect game. It just worked. But typically, this is not a good defense to run on. And in the last meeting 2 weeks ago, it was Tyler Algier who struggled on the ground, but actually Huntley did fairly well. Now, Algier got it done as a receiver and scored. So this is a good run defense. But that said, you mentioned before, Cordell Patterson's back.
Yeah, and I've heard this. So I've looked into this storyline of this decent run attack, this rush defense from the Panthers. And you know what? They started the season off really well, but the problem is they have no consistency on offense right now, and they're on the field the whole game. So it doesn't really matter how great your defense. Hey, I'm a Chicago Bears guy. I know what it's like to have a good defense get dragged through the muck because they're on the field for 40 minutes out of a 60-minute game. So that's where the issue could lie. Obviously, it's going to be fun trying to move this football. And let's break down these quarterbacks now. We have PJ Walker. We have Marcus Mariota, 2 guys that aren't really known to throw the ball. I mean, PJ Walker, he did go off over 300 yards against Atlanta just not 2 weeks ago. However, is PJ like the leash has got? He had a QB rating last week of 0. Baker Mayfield went off when he was in, granted, garbage time. I'm taking the less on PJ Walker. You have the weather, you have a short leash, and you have Baker Mayfield chomping at the bit, which, I mean, whatever. Once you start him, he's gonna be awful, but as long as he's in the backup and you have him motivated for something, he'll be okay. So less on PJ just because of situational football.
Connor, as we look at this game, A.J. Terrell, who is the best corner left on Atlanta, he started the game 2 weeks ago, but left with an injury. And then that's kind of when P.J. Walker got rolling. Well, Terrell's still out. He'll miss tonight's game. Casey Hayward's been on the IR for a while. So they're without their 2 outside corners. But you mentioned it. P.J. Walker's kind of had a perfect storm of things going. In that first matchup 2 weeks ago, Atlanta got a lead, and it became garbage time. And it worked for Walker. But I don't think there's much of a chance that the Panthers, want to put this game on PJ Walker's shoulders. I think they believe that they can get a good running game out of Deontay Foreman, who had 118 yards and 3 touchdowns against his team 2 weeks ago. They're going to ride him. Hubbard's back as well, Chuba Hubbard. He should get 8 to 10 carries. And I think they're going to be comfortable running the ball. And if the field's wet, that works into this well also. Now, if Walker has to throw on occasion, Atlanta doesn't get pressure. They're one of the least pressure rate teams in the league. And the Panthers, actually, their offensive line and pass blocking has gotten better over the weeks. So if Walker needs a throw, he can. But I'm with you. This is a running game. It's a wet game. It's going to be a closer game. We're going less.
Yeah, and I just think he's on a short leash as well. Like I never want to take a more on a quarterback that could be stapled could just be stapled down at the end of the first quarter. Well, smell you, even if it's only 160 yards, unless you're Pat Mahomes, you're not getting 161 in the first quarter. Now, flip the script here. Marcus Mariota, I think he could have success running the football this week. And based off of weather, based off what we're hearing, is he going to be throwing the ball? Especially when you have the three backs, you have the two young guys, you have Patterson. There's no script in which I have developed for this matchup in which Marcus Mariota is throwing the ball over 20 times. So I'm going less.
The magic number, Connor, we're just right in a mind meld here because I said he's like possibly 20 pass attempts. That's about the ceiling. I saw him with you on that. And the thing
that's hilarious. By the way, I did not hear you say that. That was me just coming up with that. I don't know if you posted that on social media. I didn't steal that from you.
No, and I know you didn't. You do a great job setting this stuff up. So Mariota, they run like 47% play action, and he gets great looks downfield, but he misses his receivers so often. He's just not a good quarterback. And like you said, they have three running backs. They're going to use them tonight. Mariota probably runs a bit as well. The pass attempts aren't going to be there. The wet field will keep going back to that. And I just don't see too many passes to him hitting more than his yardage. So we're definitely going less here.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. And now I guess obviously we have to flip the script. And what we talked about coming in was the game scripts, right? And we're both talking about the running backs. So if you get the running backs on the screen here, even Chuba Hubbard, right? Like remember, before Foreman popped off, Hubbard popped off in that very same game, but he got hurt. They both had 14 odd fantasy points, and Hubbard was the one they were turning to near the goal line. So let's talk about this one first. DJ Moore, we talked about the pass attack of PJ Walker and or Baker Mayfield and or the rain and the weather. So I think DJ Moore is just a less right now. I have no confidence in anyone moving the ball in the monsoon. And then Cordero Patterson, I love this. I think it's already gone up because I saw his line at 50.5 last night on a couple of books. 55.5. I still love it. Give me the more. More. Cue the Billy Idol.
We love Billy Idol. Absolutely on that. So DJ Moore, it'll be interesting. I go to the wet field. I think it's going to really limit his explosive play opportunities. It's going to be hard to get into a route, and we know the ball often isn't going to hit him in stride. So getting that yardage after the catch is really what he lives on. And I don't think that's going to be here in this game. And we keep saying, we think it's going to be run heavy. And Terrace Marshall's become a thing. He's getting targets as well. So it's not like DJ Moore is the only game in town. So he's not going to get force-fed all the targets in a game that projects to be a bit lower scoring. Yeah, I don't see him hitting those numbers. He's going to go less as well. I agree with you 100%. And then you mentioned Cordero Patterson. Here's my concern, though. He's been hurt. Last year, he was hurt. This year, he was hurt. We're in a short week. Now, he only had 13 carries last week, but I think that's about what they want to give him. And he is over 30 now. I think they're going to give him work. I just don't think it's going to be high volume because you don't want to get him hurt. They're in a playoff hunt right now, right? And so I think they give him 10 to 13 carries. And again, on a sloppy field, if he doesn't break one long run, he's very capable of doing it. But I think the other backs all collectively are going to do well. But I don't think on the 12, 13 carries, I don't think Patterson makes it to that yardage total. He could break a long one and prove me wrong. I just don't think it's going to be there in the short week for him. I'm going to go less on him.
Yeah, for me, it's the scheming in which they use Patterson and how he breaks the big play. Yep. He literally will get stood up for 2 or 3, or he'll break it for 20 or 30. And the other thing that should be noted as well was last week they only really used him around the goal line, right? He was their goal line presence with the 2 touchdowns. He didn't garner many yards last week, so I do understand that argument. But again, what I saw Joe Mixon do to this Panthers defense, what their inability on offense means that Atlanta's going to have the ball, and I think Patterson is going to have the opportunity. So I'm sticking with my guns on the more on that one. Now, flipping the script here, you have Deontay Foreman. You just talked about him, obviously. His rushing line, 59.5 yards, so he needs the 60. Even with Hubbard back in the lineup, I feel like this is an easy more.
have to agree with you, Connor. I mean, last week, look, we throw last week's game out. They were game scripted out. They were blown out in the first quarter of the game. Foreman was never going to be used in that scenario. He had 118 yards in each of the 2 prior games. We even go back to Tennessee last year. He had a 5-game stretch right before week 18. He had 100+ yards in 3 of 5 games. He has been productive when he's on the field. This is not going to be a blowout loss. This is going to be a competitive game throughout. Foreman's going to get his 15 to 18 touches, and he is a really good running back with decent middle-of-the-road run blocking against a middle-of-the-road run defense. He is going to be just fine here. I would be more likely to say he hits 100 yards than 60. So like you, Connor, it's a clear more here. They're going to lean on him here.
Yeah, for me, it's just the running backs. It's a great day to be a running back, and I think both of us will zero in on that when we talk about the touchdown dance. But before we do that, Kyle Pitts, our producer Brian Butt, even has in the rundown disappointing Kyle Pitts. Man, what is this coming out of Florida? This guy was so highly touted. The next Gronk, can make plays, go down the field. He's essentially a wide receiver that lines up on the inside. That's all you hear about. But unfortunately, he has Marcus Mariota throwing him the ball. Here's the last 3 games. Against the Bengals, 3 receptions, 9 yards. Panthers, 5 for 80 and a touchdown. Chargers, 2 for 27. I don't see him getting 40 yards. So the outlying game there is the Panthers game, the team they're playing tonight. However, the weather, back to that point, let's not beat it to death like we already have, but everything is pointing less, and I'm going with the less. I don't see it.
You know, on the season, Pitts only has 2 games with more than 3 catches and 2 games at more than 27 yards. Think about how crazy that is. And here's the weird thing. You mentioned it. It's Marcus Mariota. It's not Pitts. Pitts is still a superstar player, but he can't control this. His routes run in most of the last 5 weeks are less than 20 a game. Now, the game against the Panthers, he ran more, but he's not running routes. His quarterback is terrible. He's not going over this yardage total. The trend is that it's not happening, and especially since he did it against this team a couple of weeks ago. Not happening twice. That's not been his season profile.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on that one. It's the less and the less on Kyle Pitts, unfortunately, and hopefully he starts to break out, because Atlanta, they've had a history of pretty solid tight ends with Tony Gonzalez, obviously, and hopefully Kyle Pitts can carry that mantle. But yeah, let's hop into it. Touchdown dance time, folks. It's the fun time. Who's going to hit pay dirt? I think we've kind of painted the picture that the 2 number 1 running backs, Foreman and Patterson. And then I think it comes down to which team do you think is going to win this game? I think obviously you can't use the quarterbacks, but I think either quarterback around the goal line could be an option. But I love how I just absolutely crapped on Kyle Pitts, and I'm going to take him in the touchdown dance.
Oh my gosh, we're on the same page, man, because he had one of these 10-yard games when he scored a touchdown on that. He had another game where he caught the ball at the goal line, but literally was like 2 inches short. He's getting the ball around the goal line. He's either scoring or close to scoring. So they are featuring him around that part of the field. So yeah, I think he is the 3rd guy. So man, look at that. Everybody's got to jump on this one, because we are lockstep on this one. Like you said, Patterson, Pitts, Foreman, we're on it.
Yeah, that's the touchdown dance for tonight. And then I think that kind of flips over to our projected game scripts, right? It's going to be run heavy, and I think both of us are seemingly favoring the Falcons. And here the line right now on Bally Bets is Falcons -3, money line -150. I think the Falcons -3 even money seems real nice heading into tonight.
You know, the one issue we have is the Falcons are just terrible when they have a lead. They lose games in beautiful, spectacular fashion.
Like the Raiders.
Yes, Raiders-esque. But I do think with you on this, I think that the game is close, but I think because they won't get a big lead, they won't have a chance for a monumental breakdown. It'll be a solid enough lead. So actually, and this being a rematch game is important too, because they just saw each other 2 weeks ago. Atlanta is much more talented. I think they're much better coached. And I do believe the rotation of backs that Atlanta has with their blocking scheme works perfectly into the expected weather. So the score I predict in this is 23-17, which easily covers the 3.
Yeah, I think they cover the 3. And here's another fun fact for you. Connor did some digging. All you crazy MKFers, and here's your stat of the day. The Falcons are 5-1 against the spread their last 6 trips to Carolina. There you go. Stat of the day. Let's go. Let's go get some tonight. Over under, Jim. Obviously, just there might be some people looking at this. Let's bounce this one off you. On Ballybet, the line is 42.5. We've talked about the weather. We've absolutely beaten it to death. Your projected score is right on that line. You're teetering with it.
And it's under. I go 23-17, and if the number is 42.5, then I'm under. And look, it's still the season of unders. In week 8, in the early game window, we had a few games that had a couple high totals of 60s, of 70s. But last week, it was right back to the defenses, the low-scoring games. And especially since this game was a wild shootout the first time, we talk about that divisional matchup the second time around. Those adjustments are very real. The familiarity is very important. So that lends itself to lower scoring when you're coming back from a high-scoring game. Yeah, I totally like the under here.
Yep, absolutely love it. Folks, that's Jim Coventry, the man, the myth, the legend. Jim, let the people know where they can find all your great content.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL. I've been posting threads a few times a week. Usually it's wide receiver trends one day with actionable advice, of course, running backs another day, and then tight ends a third. You can find me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel on Saturdays from 1 to 3 Eastern, Sundays from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern. And then also I do a live stream every Sunday, answer your questions, give you the why, not just who to start, but I give you the reference points so you can make your best decision. You can catch that on Rotowire YouTube. It's also pinned to at Jim Coventry NFL. That's 2 hours before Sunday kickoff.
Absolutely love it. And I got to explain the hat real quick. Toronto Argonauts football team, CFL, Eastern Conference Finals in Toronto this weekend. You bet your bottom dollar I'll be there. Let's go Argos. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. That's Jim Coventry. I'm Connor Rowntree. Enjoy the Thursday night football.